Hey everyone, it's me, Jonathan from Motorcycology. Thanks for being here and thanks for stopping by and seeing what I'm up to now with the C3 Corvette. So in today's video, what I'm going to do is refresh the timing cover and then also refresh the crankshaft pulley. So both of these parts are in pretty rough shape, but I think that they're salvageable. So I'm going to go into it, see what options that I have, clean it up, repaint it, and then decide whether or not I want to use the old parts or whether or not I want to invest in some new parts. So that's where I am with this particular project. So thanks for being here. Let's start and see how it goes. This is just a recap of what happened in a couple previous videos. So the first part is showing the timing cover being removed from the engine, and then also a quick shot of how bad that timing cover looked. And the final part is just showing the removal of the old timing gears and the front of the engine with the old gasket stuff in place, which I will take off in this video. So that was the purpose of the recap prior to getting into this video. So let's go. Just getting ready to clean up around the engine here. I'm going to take the gasket off or scrape whatever's left of the gasket. I'm going to degrease as much as possible around the face of this engine here before putting all the other stuff back together. So let's do this and see how it goes. I'm going to be using one of these things here, which is great for removing a gasket and scraping the stuff off. So I've got these at different lengths, and I'll just use that to scrape down the front, and we'll see how it goes. So this is just me taking my time to scrape the old gasket material off, whether or not it was a fixed gasket or it was some gasket RTV material, I'm not too sure, but it certainly is stuck on there pretty hard. So I'm taking my time to do that properly. I'm using a relatively wide and flat gasket scraper, and that's helping me get underneath whatever material's on there and gently scrape it off. So I'm going to emphasize that I'm taking my time. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on there. One of the things that I do not want to do is damage the front of the engine surface where the gasket is going to mate with. So I'm being very careful to take my time and get this off properly. One of the options that I could do once I get most of it off is to use a very flat sanding block and use some very fine grit emery cloth or sandpaper just to make sure that I get the surface perfectly clean. With that runs the risk of, if you're using a sanding block, runs the risk of making that surface not perfectly flat. So if I use a sanding block, I'm using a very flat and stable sanding block, and I'm going over those mating surfaces very, very lightly. So in the rest of this part of the video, you're going to see me do a little bit of cleanup with the gasket. It's a little bit difficult on the Corvette because, as I mentioned in a previous video, the engine is set way, way back on this car compared to the front end. So you've got the front end and the front bumper miles in front of where you need to access the engine. So the ability to reach over and get this work done is what's required. It's not necessarily fun, and it takes a little bit of extra effort because you're consistently reaching way farther than you'd want to scrape that off. So to wrap up this little part here, I'm just covering the timing gears and chain as I apply the orange degreaser and work on the engine. So once again, takes a little bit of time and effort, but with a little bit of work can certainly make a difference. Get most of the old grease and oil off the front end of the engine and tidy it up a little bit so that when I do put the timing cover back on and all the other components, including the water pump, everything is going to look as clean and new as possible, and that's part of my goal. So just wrapping it up here, and then we're going to move on to the actual restoration and choice on a timing belt cover and also the crankshaft pulley. Sticking my gloves on again for this. So as I get ready to put the timing cover on, I'm having a look at some of the stuff that I need to work on. So this is the crankshaft pulley, and it's looking a little bit not worn out, but dirty and needs to be refreshed. So I'm going to do that. There's a lot of crud in it, and I'll clean that up and paint it so it looks as close to new as possible. Also, this is the original timing cover, and it's super greasy, but what I do like about it is it has this timing scale on it, which could be really, really useful. So I'm considering, instead of replacing this, I'm just going to clean it up and repaint it and reuse it. So generally it looks pretty good, and I'm sure that I can get it back into normal condition. I've got new seals here, new gaskets, so that's doable. I may show you some time-lapsed video on the cleaning of this, but I'm going to get this thing at least in new light condition if possible. What I also have here is a gasket set. It's got water pump gaskets, which I'm going to use. It's got the timing cover gasket. It has this oil pan gasket for the bottom of the timing cover. I'm not going to use that because I've got a different type of gasket. And it's also got the timing cover seal in it, which goes in here. So here's the seal in here, and that just pops out and you put in a new one. So this is doable to get this one back into decent condition. Also, I have this, and I'm going to show you what that is. This is another alternative for sure. So as you can see, this is a new timing cover, and it looks pretty good. It's nice and chrome. I like it. And it's got some other parts inside of it, like gaskets and the screws. Although I don't really like these gaskets, I'm not going to use it. I may consider using this one. The only thing I don't like about it is it doesn't have the gauge for timing. So I'm not too sure if I'm going to use this or not. I don't know. We'll see as I get close to it. I'm going to try and refresh the original one first and take it from there. But I'll definitely be using these screws for sure. So that's where I am with the timing cover, and I'm going to get to work on getting this all set up. All right, this is the old timing cover, which I'm going to try and clean, and we'll see how it goes. I always get surprised when I'm doing this, whether or not it's worth it or not, in the restoration of these old C3 Corvettes. Sometimes it just seems like there's a ton of work that needs to be done, and whether or not all the effort is worth it. But at the same time, you know, the name of this channel is Motor Psychology, so part of it is positive energy and positive way of thinking as far as a mindset to get this done. I've never found any of it extremely difficult. It's just a matter of commitment and putting in a little bit of time and energy to get this done. So as I'm working on this part over the sink, I'm often thinking, what's the final product going to look like? Is all this effort going to be worthwhile? I also try and envision what this is going to look like if I decide to finish it and install it on the vehicle, what it's going to look like and what the final product is. That always helps keep me motivated.
It's a lot of gunk on this thing. We'll get it off.
It's definitely a lot of work. Also, where I live, it gets really cold in the wintertime, so it's less easy to do this type of stuff outdoors. So I'm constrained to an indoor environment for doing this, or sometimes, you know, I do have a heated garage. If I'm not doing any cleaning, I can actually go out and do some mechanical repair in the garage. And, you know, that keeps me busy, that keeps me happy. And as long as I can continue working on these projects and keep the momentum going, that's important to me.
Seeing some of the old blue color come back, but not much. The inside's not too bad.
I think that's going to just about wrap it up for the scraping of all this gunk off here, and I'm going to get ready to start using some of that Chemical Guys orange degreaser to start cleaning this part and see what it's like when it's clean and see if it's worthwhile fixing.
Alright, just like the other parts, some orange degreaser, let that sit.
As I'm getting ready to do the cleaning on this, I realize that I'm likely going to be trashing my sink here, and that's going to require another layer of cleanup. But it's all part of the fun, I guess, of doing these projects.
The other part that I have to do is the crankshaft pulley, and it's a little bit dirty as well, especially on the inside. I'm sure this will just scrape off, more like a powder.
I actually like this part a lot as far as all the engine components that I've seen, so it's kind of a cool crankshaft double or triple pulley, I think it is. So I like it. It's a really neat piece. And I sourced these things, so if you're to look at getting one of these things brand new as a replacement, it's over $150. So in my mind, it's worth doing a little bit of restoration, or at least diving into that area and see if it's worth restoring before buying a new one. I love to reuse the original parts if possible, and that keeps the entire Corvette as original as possible. And my Corvette is 99% exactly like it was when it came out of the factory. So in that regard, I'm more than happy to give an effort on this thing and see if I can get it back to a presentable and functional state.
Sure, the rest will clean up okay. Get the parts brush out.
Here comes all the crazy labor that is part of restoring these things. So it's a lot of back and forth with the parts cleaning brush, the orange degreaser, a little bit of water, and a lot of elbow grease, as they say, to get this thing cleaned and rid of all the oil and grease and grime that's on it, and at least get it back to a clean part, and then I can reassess whether or not I want to do anything with it or just throw it out. So that's kind of like what I'm thinking about as I'm cleaning this up, having a good visual inspection along the way. And overall, I'm not disappointed with how it's turning out. It's looking a lot better than it did at the beginning of this exercise. The same thing for the pulley. I'm going to do the same thing with that.
This is going to require some gasket cleanup in there, and then also the surface to be lightly sanded as well. That seal's got to come out as well. Alright, that's phase one. Still got some oil and grease in here.
Okay, here we are starting on the crankshaft pulley. So I'm thinking hopefully it's not going to be as greasy and dirty as the timing cover, and I think I was right in that area, so it wasn't really a super big effort to get this thing degreased and cleaned. For both the parts, the plan is also to wire brush them with a wire brush attachment onto a drill or an angle grinder. So that's the step that I'm going to do after this, and then it's going to be painting them. So hopefully everything is going to work out fine.
Let's see where this is getting clean but needs to be resurfaced. Getting these cleaned up. Remember how dirty those were? This one I'm not quite finished with it, but it's getting there. It's looking pretty good. It's a little bit pitted, but I don't mind it. And this is pitted on the inside, but I'm still going to use it, I think. I'm going to paint it and use it. So I wanted to show you guys on here, this is the old timing cover, and this is the seal that was in there, and you can see that the seal wasn't even put down flush. So this seal here needs to be flush with the timing gear cover, and it wasn't. And if you look on the inside here, there's a pretty significant gap in there. I'll see if I can get this in there. And you can actually see through it in some areas. So there's the gap right in there. And that gap shouldn't exist, so it should be flush with that. So definitely going to hammer this thing out in a second, and I'm going to do that. This is the setup I'm going to use on here. It's held in nice and sturdy with this workbench here, and it's just going to be a matter of tapping this seal out. So I'm just going to use a hammer and a screwdriver to tap that out. All right, I'm going to be tapping this seal out here, and I'm just going to use this screwdriver here, just a flat head screwdriver right there, and a hammer, and lightly tap that out. So let's see how that goes.
I'm learning pretty fast here that it's going to take a little bit more than light tapping to get this seal out. So this hammer and screwdriver method is not getting this seal out. So I had to resort to another method. So it was a combination of whacking the crap out of the seal and then also using a pair of locking pliers to get it out. So you're going to see that in just a moment.
It's slowly making its way out. Just going to spray in a little bit of lubrication in there and see if that helps. There, that should lubricate it enough to come out pretty easily now. There we go. The seal is out. Took a while, but I got it out. Throw this stuff away. Hey everyone, I'm back here in my workshop. I'm going to be putting the seal into the timing cover and I'll show you how I do that. Hopefully that'll work out well. I've got a couple options to use, but I'm going to choose the simpler method and we'll get it done and hopefully it'll go smoothly. And then I'll show you a couple of the other things that I'm working on the part since the last time. All right, so let's get into this part of putting the seal in. So everyone, this is the original one that was all rusted. I've got that painted and cleaned. So it's basically good to go. I do need to put the seal in here though. And here is the seal. That just needs to be pressed into this spot here, and it shouldn't be too difficult to do that. I do like the original one in the sense that it has this gauge already lined up, and that would be useful as well to have that. So this is my primary piece that I would like to reuse if possible. If not, I've got a chrome version which I like. It's got the seal already pressed in. What it doesn't have is the gauge here, and this gauge is really important for adjusting your timing. So this one is without it. However, you can buy a part that attaches to a couple bolts here and it will lean over and do exactly the same thing as what this gauge does. So if I do put the chrome one on, I will attach the gauge onto that. But like lots of things with this Corvette, I like to keep the original if possible, and this one came out okay. It's got the GM blue on it, and we'll see if it is worth using. But for now, I'm going to put the seal in, and I'll show you a couple ways that I can do that. Since this is off the car and there's no crankshaft pointing through here, it's not too difficult to put the seal in because there's not something coming out. So there's different ways to do it. One of the methods is you can use a large press and, you know, pick one of these that fits that diameter and line that up like so. Then you can put your seal through it. Make sure it's the right orientation, like that. And then stick it through like so. Then you can take these other parts here and you can line this one up and kind of have it pressed in between. Take this nut, do it all the way up and keep tightening, and this would eventually press that seal in there. Not too sure if I'm going to do that. That's kind of my backup, and I'm just going to try and tap it in with a different type of seal press. This second method is a little bit simpler. This is a typical seal type of press, so what you need to do is find an insert here which is the same size as that seal, and I've done that. The actual size is, I guess they're calling it an 11, but that fits perfectly on that diameter, and that will be the actual part that presses it in. This is the tool, so this little guy here will go on top like that, and then the screw keeps them together. Doesn't have to be tight, and then this will be used to press the seal in here, and it's just like tap on that and it should go in no problem. So that's the method I'm going to use, and I'm just going to get set up to do that. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to use the other method of getting this seal in here. It's a little bit simpler. So I'm going to use this hockey puck here, and that's going to act as a support base so that I don't bend this as I put pressure. I'm going to also use a couple of these spacers, and that will give me the right height that I'm looking for, and that can go right here to help provide support. So looking at putting that there, putting this on here, and you can see that it's nice and hard and a great surface here to tap that in. So that's going to be the basic setup. Then I will take this guy here and tap that seal in. So let's get ready and do that. So this is the setup I'm going to use on this one. I'm going to use the hockey puck as a stable foundation. I need one of these to create a hole in the area, and then this will fit on perfectly like that, and now I just need to support these areas here. All right, that's going to be my setup. It's really stable and will give me a nice point to tap the seal in here, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to get set up for that. So once again, for this I'm going to use some Ultra Slick to lubricate the spot where the seal has to go in. I did have a bit of overspray in there, but I'm going to leave it in there. I'm not going to try and sand that out, because at the end of the day, if it's a nice tight fit, I'm good with that. So let's put the engine assembly lube on here and get this thing in. Not putting very much on it at all, just to allow it to slide a bit better. There. Okay. Important to make sure that you don't put it in backwards. That's the bottom or the inside of the timing cover seal, and that's the outside. So let's place that in. Before you tap it in, you want to make sure that this is as level as possible and not going in on an angle. So it looks pretty good. Probably straighten it out a little bit. There we go, that's not too bad. This is the tool that I'm going to tap it in with, and I'm going to give it a shot. So because it has a screw at the end, you can see why I needed the hole there in order to get it to tap in. It's almost in. A couple taps. That seal is practically in. It's a little bit high on that side. I'll just get another couple taps and we should be good. These guys lined up again. Not that you have to use a larger mallet, but I'm going to give that a try to get it in nice and firm. So here we go. There we go, that seal is in perfectly, and this guy is ready to be reinstalled back on the C3. So that's not bad, not too difficult. Here's the crankshaft pulley. It's getting there. It's looking pretty good now. And I just need to do that side and then in the grooves as well. So I'm going to do the back side right now. And I'm using an indoor spraying tent. Just keeps all the flyaway spray paint off things that you don't want it to be yet. All right, let's give this a try here. Yeah, much better. I'm gonna have to let that dry. See if I can get in these grooves at all. Pretty good. There we go. We're gonna let that one dry for now. Come back later. Well, here's the final products that I'm left with. So I've got this totally nicely done crankshaft pulley, which will be perfect. Came out really good. I like it. This old one looks great. The seal is in there and it's nice and clean, ready to go on. And I think I'm going to at least attempt to put this one on. I like it. It's the original one and it's all stock. My backup one is going to be this guy here. I do like that it's chrome I am going to order a ruler indexing so that I can do the timing. And if I like how that is, then I'm going to put that one on. So I'm still kind of undecided. A lot of my engine has chrome on it, so this makes sense. So I'm going to go and order the gauge that I need for that and take it from there. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the refresh and refurbish of these. I think it's cool to bring something that was old and not looking so good back to life, and it would be super great to have this one back on the engine working properly. All right, here we are. I'm just going to put the timing covers on just for a look and see how they look on here. So here's the chrome one. That is what that one is going to look like. Not too bad. The other one is putting the blue one back on, which is going back to the original. All right, this is kind of how the blue one is going to look like when it's in place, which it's not in place. This is just to look. A definite improvement from what it was before. So that's pretty cool. And using the chrome one is definitely not out of the question. So I've got a lot of chrome on here as it is on the valve covers and the air cleaner and a few other things. So you know what? You might be looking at the chrome one on there. I'm just going to do a quick switch. Just hold on a sec. And this is kind of like what the chrome one's going to look like in there. So more chrome on the engine. Like I said, undecided. We'll see as I get closer to putting this back together. Hey everyone, that concludes this video. I guess it wasn't the most exciting video, but it's definitely something that has to be done on this body of work for this C3 Corvette. So getting the old timing cover off and taking the time to clean it and restore it and put in a new seal, I'm happy with the final result. I'm also happy with the chrome timing cover that I have as well. So right now I'm undecided on what one I'm going to use, but I'm glad that I have two good ones that are ready to go. So that's it for this video. Thanks so much for your support. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching the video. I appreciate every single one of the viewers. Your contributions, your comments are all excellent and much appreciated. So stick around for the next video. I'm already working on it and I hope to have it out very soon. Thanks so much, you guys.